The warning alarm screamed across every military installation on Earth. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the orbital station, watching the impossible unfold on her screens. 37 massive ships had appeared at the edge of the solar system, and they were not friendly. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission," Lieutenant Park said, his voice shaking. Sarah nodded. The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature unlike anything humanity had ever seen. It stood tall on 4 legs with a torso that rose upward, ending in a head with 6 eyes arranged in a circle. Its skin looked like polished stone, gray and covered in geometric patterns. "Humans of Earth," the creature spoke, and somehow the words came through in perfect English. "I am High Executor Vexthor of the Zetharian Collective. Your planet has been selected for integration into our labor force. You will surrender all military assets immediately. You have 72 hours to comply." Sarah felt her blood turn cold. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We receive all diplomatic envoys with respect, but we will not surrender our sovereignty. If you wish to establish peaceful relations," Vexthor made a sound like grinding rocks. It might have been laughter. "You misunderstand. This is not a negotiation." The screen changed to show Mars. The small orbital defense platform that protected the colony suddenly exploded in a brilliant flash of light. 3,000 people died in an instant. Sarah watched the debris scatter into space, carrying the bodies of people she knew, friends she had trained with. "That was a demonstration," Vexthor continued. "We have studied your species for many years. We know your weapons, your ships, your capabilities. They are primitive. You cannot win. Surrender, and your people will be treated according to their usefulness. Resist, and we will take what we need from the ashes." The transmission ended. Sarah looked around the bridge at her crew. Some were crying. Others sat frozen in shock. They had dreamed of meeting alien life for centuries. This was not how it was supposed to happen. "Get me the Secretary General," Sarah said quietly, "and prepare all defense fleets for immediate deployment." The next 18 hours were chaos. Every military ship that Earth had built in the last century moved into defensive positions. 43 vessels, representing the best technology humanity had created. They faced the alien fleet near the orbit of the moon. Sarah commanded the flagship, the EDS Victory, a massive carrier that held both fighters and long-range missiles. She knew the odds were against them, but they had to try. They had to show these aliens that humanity would not simply roll over and die. The battle lasted 6 hours. It felt like 6 years. The Zetharian weapons cut through human shields like they were made of paper. Their ships moved faster than anything Earth's forces could match. Their accuracy was perfect, hitting weak points in human ships with every shot. Sarah watched vessel after vessel disappear from her tactical display, each blinking light representing hundreds of lives. The Victory took a direct hit to its port side. The entire section decompressed, venting atmosphere and bodies into the void. Sarah held onto her command chair as the ship shook violently. Alarms blared from every console. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 12. We've lost main power to the weapons grid," Lieutenant Park shouted. "Fall back," Sarah ordered, tasting defeat like ash in her mouth. "All remaining ships retreat to Earth orbit." "Fighting formation, Delta." Only 11 ships answered her call. 32 had been destroyed. The Zetharians had barely taken any damage. Within a day, Zetharian troops were landing in every major city on Earth. Their landing craft descended like falling stars, and from them emerged soldiers in armor that seemed to absorb weapon fire without effect. Ground forces tried to fight back, but it was useless. Tanks exploded before they could fire. Infantry positions were wiped out by weapons that fired streams of superheated plasma. Sarah watched the reports from the orbital station. New York fell in 4 hours. Beijing in 3. Moscow lasted 6 hours, but only because the Zetharians seemed to take their time, making examples of resistance fighters. In Lagos, a young man named Kai Okonkwo watched from a rooftop as the aliens marched through his city. He was a civil engineer, not a soldier, but he had done his mandatory military service like all citizens. He watched the Zetharian troops move in perfect formation, their weapons ready, their movements precise. "They think we're beaten," his friend Amara whispered beside him. "We are beaten," Kai replied. "Look at them. We can't fight that. So we just give up? Let them take everything?" Kai watched a Zetharian soldier strike a civilian who moved too slowly. The person crumpled to the ground, unconscious or dead. Rage burned in his chest, but he pushed it down. Rage without a plan was just suicide. No, he said slowly. We don't give up. But we need to be smart. Far from Earth, in a hidden facility on Europa, Dr. Marcus Webb was already being smart. The research station had been built inside the moon's ice crust, invisible to orbital scans. When the invasion began, Webb had been working on faster-than-light communication systems. Now he worked on something much more important. His team had recovered debris from the battle near the moon. Pieces of Zetharian ships, damaged weapons, fragments of their armor. Webb studied each piece like it held the secrets of the universe. In a way, it did. This is incredible, he muttered, examining a piece of their hull material under an electron microscope. The molecular structure is aligned in a crystalline lattice, but it's held together by some kind of energy field. I've never seen anything like it. Can we replicate it? Asked Dr. Sarah Nakamura, his second-in-command. Not yet. We don't have the technology. But look here. Webb adjusted the microscope. See these nodes? They're regulators for the energy field. If we could disrupt them, the whole structure would collapse. A weakness, Nakamura breathed. Every armor has a weakness, Webb said. We just need to find all of them. Back on Earth, the surrender deadline approached. The world's governments gathered in what was left of Geneva, Switzerland. The Zetharians had taken over the United Nations building as their command center. It was symbolic and cruel. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the assembly hall, now filled with Zetharian officers and human officials. Fexthor towered over everyone, his 6 eyes surveying the gathering with what looked like satisfaction. Your time has expired, Fexthor announced. The governments of Earth will now sign the instruments of surrender. You will become subjects of the Zetharian collective. Your military will be disbanded. Your industries will serve our needs. Resistance will be met with extermination. The Secretary General, an elderly woman named Maria Santos, stepped forward. Her hands shook as she held the tablet containing the surrender document. Sarah wanted to scream to tell her not to sign, but what choice did they have? The aliens could destroy cities from orbit. They had already proven that. As Secretary General Santos reached for the stylus to sign, Sarah's communicator buzzed. It was a tight beam transmission, encrypted with protocols that only a few people knew. She glanced at the message, keeping her face neutral. It was from Dr. Webb, and it contained only 7 words. They made a mistake. We found weaknesses. Sarah looked up at Vexthor, at his confident posture, his dismissive attitude. He thought this was over. He thought humanity was broken, ready to be slaves. He had no idea what was coming. Sarah allowed herself the smallest smile as the Secretary General signed the document. Let them think they had won. Let them grow comfortable, complacent. Humanity had spent its entire history learning how to survive against impossible odds. The Zetharians were about to get an education in human stubbornness. The war was not over. It was just beginning. 6 months passed under Zetharian rule, and Earth had become a prison. The aliens had divided the planet into administrative zones. Each zone had a Zetharian overseer who controlled everything from food distribution to work assignments. Humans were sorted by their skills and sent to factories, mines, and construction sites. Those who resisted were made examples of, their executions broadcast on every screen to remind people of their place. But the Zetharians made a critical mistake. They assumed that compliance meant acceptance. They did not understand that humans could smile and bow while hiding knives behind their backs. In the ruins of what used to be Lagos, Kai Okonkwo had become someone different. The civil engineer was gone, replaced by a resistance leader who moved through the shadows of his occupied city. His network had grown to 300 people, each one carefully vetted, each one burning with the same controlled rage. The patrol changes shifts at 0400 hours, Amara reported, studying the schedule they had stolen from a Zetharian data terminal. That gives us a 6-minute window when the south sector is undermanned. Kai nodded, marking the location on his map. It was hand-drawn on paper, because the Zetharians monitored all electronic communications. Or so they thought. We hit the supply depot, take what we can carry, and disappear, Kai said. No heroics. We're not strong enough to fight them head-on yet. Yet, Amara repeated, smiling grimly. You think that will change? It has to. Unknown to Kai, changes were already happening far from Earth. Admiral Sarah Chen had escaped the planet with what remained of the defense fleet. 11 ships, damaged and undermanned, had fled to the outer solar system. The Zetharians had let them go, considering them no threat. They were wrong. Chen had established a mobile base that moved between the moons of Saturn. The ships stayed in constant motion, never remaining in one place long enough to be tracked. It was exhausting, but it kept them alive. "Admiral, incoming transmission from Europa," Lieutenant Park announced. "It's Dr. Webb." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. Webb had been silent for weeks, working on something he would not discuss over even encrypted channels. "Put him through." Webb's face appeared on the screen and Sarah was shocked by what she saw. He had lost weight, and his eyes had dark circles under them, but they also burned with intensity. "Sarah, I need you to see this," Webb said without preamble. He held up what looked like a small metal sphere. "This is a Zytharian shield generator. We pulled it from wreckage near Titan. Do you know what we discovered?" "Tell me." "They're standardized. Every ship, every piece of armor, every installation uses the exact same shielding technology. They haven't changed it in over 300 years. Sarah leaned forward. "Why would they do that?" "Because they don't need to," Webb replied. "They're part of something bigger, Sarah. The Zytharian Collective is not just a government. It's part of a galactic empire with strict rules. Everything is standardized for efficiency. They have protocols for everything, including warfare. So they're predictable," Sarah said slowly. "Exactly. And we found the frequencies their shields operate on. We can disrupt them. We built a prototype." Webb's exhausted face split into a fierce grin. "We tested it on a piece of their armor. It went from invulnerable to Swiss cheese in 3 seconds. For the first time in 6 months, Sarah Chen felt hope bloom in her chest. "How many can you make?" "With the resources we have here? Maybe 2 dozen. But if you can get us more materials, more power sources from salvage, I'll get you everything you need," Sarah promised. "Send me the specifications. We start tonight." The resistance on Earth was learning too, but their lessons came harder. Kai's group successfully raided the supply depot, but they lost 2 people in the escape. The Zytharians retaliated by executing 50 civilians in the nearest district. Kai stood on the same rooftop where he had watched the invasion begin, staring at the bodies hanging from lampposts. The Zytharians left them there for days as warnings. 50 people dead because he had stolen food and medical supplies. "This isn't your fault," Amara said beside him. "Isn't it? I led the raid. The Zytharians killed them. Not you." Amara put a hand on his shoulder. "Kai, we received something. A transmission on the old emergency frequencies." Kai turned to look at her. "From who?" "Admiral Chen, she's alive. And she says humanity is fighting back." The message from Chen changed everything. It was not long, just 30 seconds of encrypted audio, but it spread through the resistance networks like wildfire. The Admiral was alive. The fleet still existed, and they were coming back. More importantly, Chen included technical information, frequencies that disrupted Zytharian shields, weak points in their armor, patrol schedules from captured databases. The resistance movements across Earth suddenly had real intelligence to work with. Kai and his people began to adapt their tactics. They stopped going after supplies and started targeting communication relays. They sabotaged power systems that fed Zytharian facilities. They made the occupation expensive and annoying, like mosquitoes biting an elephant. Individually, each bite meant nothing. But thousands of bites? That could drive even an elephant mad. The Zytharians noticed. High Executor Vexthor called a meeting of his subordinate commanders. "Resistance activity has increased 40% in the last month," Vexthor said, his multiple eyes scanning the reports. "This is unacceptable. These primitives should have accepted their place by now." "They are unusually stubborn," one commander noted. "Perhaps we should increase the severity of our reprisals?" "No," Vexthor said. "Harsh reprisals only create martyrs. These humans respond poorly to intimidation. We will instead increase patrols and surveillance. Root out the resistance cells systematically. This planet produces valuable resources. We need the workforce intact." But Vexthor was thinking in terms of traditional occupation, following the protocols that had worked on dozens of other species. He did not understand human psychology. Every patrol he sent out was an opportunity for ambush. Every surveillance system was something that could be hacked or fed false information. On Titan, Sarah Chen was making plans that would have terrified Vexthor if he had known. She stood before a holographic display showing the entire solar system. Red dots marked Zytharian positions. Blue dots showed human assets, pitiful few compared to the red. "We can't beat them in a straight fight," Chen said to her assembled officers. "They have superior technology, superior numbers, and superior firepower. So we don't fight straight. What do you propose, Admiral? Asked Commander Jackson, her tactical officer. We hit them where they're weak. Logistics. The Zetharians operate on a supply chain that stretches across multiple star systems. They need regular shipments of fuel, food, materials. Those supply ships are lightly defended because nobody has ever attacked them before. Because attacking supply ships violates their rules of warfare, Lieutenant Park said. They consider it dishonorable. Then it's a good thing we're not playing by their rules, Chen replied coldly. We're going to steal, sabotage, and destroy everything they need to keep this occupation running. We're going to make Earth too expensive to hold. Dr. Webb joined the meeting via communication link. Admiral, I have an update. We've managed to reverse engineer more than just their shields. Their weapon systems, their sensors, even their faster-than-light drives. It's all built on the same basic principles. Can we replicate any of it? Chen asked. Some of it, yes. We don't have the manufacturing base for the really advanced stuff. But we can make improvements to our own technology. I can upgrade the weapons on your ships to be 30% more effective against their armor. How long? 2 weeks per ship, Chen nodded. Do it. Start with the fastest vessels. We'll need speed for what comes next. Over the following weeks, human forces began to change. The scattered ships of Chen's fleet were upgraded with new weapons, new shields, and new tactics. On Earth, resistance cells coordinated their activities, sharing intelligence through a network of smuggled data chips and coded messages, hidden in seemingly innocent transmissions. The Zetharians still believed they were in control. They saw the resistance as a minor annoyance, nothing that threatened their occupation. Vexthor filed his reports with the collective, assuring them that Earth would be fully pacified within another year. He had no idea that in hidden labs, on distant moons and in occupied cities, humanity was preparing for something the galaxy had never seen. The humans were not just resisting. They were learning, adapting, and planning, and they were angry. Kai received a new message from Admiral Chen. This one contained a date and a simple instruction. Be ready. When we move with us. Show them what happens when they underestimate desperate people. Kai gathered his lieutenants and showed them the message. We've been biting at their heels. That's about to change. Admiral Chen is planning something big. How big? Amara asked. Kai smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Big enough that the Zetharians are finally going to realize they made a mistake coming here. The attack began at 300 hours, synchronized across 12 locations in the solar system. Admiral Sarah Chen watched from the Bridge of the Victory as her fleet moved into position near Jupiter. The gas giant's massive magnetic field would mask their approach, or so Dr. Webb's calculations suggested. 8 ships against the Zetharian supply station orbiting Io. The odds were terrible, but that had never stopped humans before. All ships report ready, Lieutenant Park said quietly. Sarah took a deep breath. Everything hinged on the next few hours. If this failed, humanity's last hope would die here in the void. If it succeeded, the Zetharians would finally understand what they had awakened. Execute Operation Broken Protocol, Sarah ordered. Show them how humans fight. The Victory and its escort ships erupted from Jupiter's shadow at full speed. The Zetharian station detected them immediately, alarms blaring across their communication channels. But the aliens expected a traditional attack, a naval battle following predictable patterns. Instead, the human ships launched clouds of small objects, thousands of them spreading out in a widening sphere. The Zetharians assumed they were missiles and activated their point defense systems. They were wrong. Mines armed, Park reported. Scattering pattern optimal. Each object was a simple explosive device wrapped in radar-absorbing material, scattered randomly through the space around the station. The Zetharian sensors could not track them all, and their weapons could not shoot what they could not see clearly. Then the Victory launched its real weapons. Missiles modified with the shield-disrupting technology Dr. Webb had developed. They streaked toward the station, and when the Zetharian shields tried to stop them, they simply passed through as if the shields were not there. The station exploded in a brilliant fireball. Secondary explosions followed as stored fuel and ammunition detonated. Thousands of tons of supplies meant for Earth's occupation vanished in seconds. Target destroyed, Park announced, his voice shaking with adrenaline. No casualties on our side. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. One down. Set course for the secondary target, and broadcast our success on all Zetharian frequencies. I want them to know we're coming. The same scene played out across the solar system. At Titan, human ships destroyed a fuel depot using kamikaze drones, small craft packed with explosives and piloted by artificial intelligence. The Zetharians tried to shoot them down, but there were too many, coming from too many angles. Near Mars, resistance fighters who had hidden in the colony's ruins sabotaged the Zetharian communication relay. They used explosives in the Foundation, bringing the entire structure down in a cloud of red dust. On Earth, Kai Okonkwo led his people in their part of the operation. They had been preparing for weeks, stockpiling materials and mapping targets. Now they moved with coordinated precision. Team 1 report, Kai whispered into his communicator. Power station secured. Charges set. Team 2, vehicle depot ready. We got lucky, caught them during shift change. Kai nodded to himself. Across Lagos, similar conversations were happening in 50 other resistance cells. Across Earth and every occupied city, humans were moving against their oppressors. All teams execute on my mark, Kai said. He checked his watch, counting down the seconds. 3, 2, 1 mark. The night erupted with explosions. Power stations went dark. Vehicle depots burned. Communication towers toppled. The Zetharians had superior technology, but they relied on infrastructure that the humans had built and knew intimately. High Executive Vexthor woke to chaos. His command center was in disarray, with officers shouting reports of attacks from every corner of Earth. The orbital stations were under assault. Supply lines had been cut. Communication systems were failing. What is happening? Vexthor roared, his 6 eyes scanning the tactical displays. The humans are attacking everywhere simultaneously, his second-in-command reported. They're not following any logical pattern. They're hitting logistics, infrastructure, support systems. Nothing is coordinated by military doctrine. How can they coordinate such widespread attacks without communication systems? We do not know, High Executor. But the attacks are effective. We have lost 40% of our supply capacity in the last 3 hours. Vexthor felt something he had not experienced in his long military career: uncertainty. The humans were not fighting the way defeated species were supposed to fight. They were not following the rules. Deploy all reserve forces, Vexthor ordered. Hunt down these resistance cells and destroy them. But the resistance cells were not where the Zetharians expected. When troops arrived at attack sites, they found empty buildings rigged with more explosives. When they chased reported fighters, they ran into ambushes or led into areas where their vehicles could not follow. Kai and his team watched from a safe house as Zetharian troops searched the ruins of the power station they had destroyed. The aliens moved in textbook formation, scanning for threats, securing the perimeter. They're learning our tactics, Amara observed. Good, Kai replied. Let them think they understand. We'll adapt faster. In space, Admiral Chen was already adapting. The Zetharians had scrambled their defense fleets, moving to protect their remaining supply infrastructure. Chen watched their movements on her tactical display, noting the patterns. They're pulling ships from Earth orbit to protect the outer system, she noted. That's a mistake. Why, Admiral? Asked Commander Jackson. Because it means Earth's defenses just got weaker. Signal the resistance. Tell them to increase their attacks. Make the Zetharians commit more forces to ground operations. Dr. Webb's voice came over the communication channel from Europa. Sarah, I'm picking up increased Zetharian military traffic. They're calling for reinforcements from outside the solar system. Expected, Sarah replied. How long until they arrive? At least 2 weeks. Maybe 3. Then we have 2 weeks to break their supply chain so badly that reinforcements won't matter. The human fleet moved like ghosts through the outer solar system. They hit a supply convoy near Saturn, destroying 3 cargo ships before vanishing into the planet's rings. They laid mines in orbital paths used by Zetharian vessels, turning routine patrols into deadly gambles. The Zetharians adapted too, but they were adapting to a style of warfare they had never encountered. Their protocols and procedures had been developed over centuries of conflicts that followed established rules. Humanity was writing new rules with every engagement. A week into Operation Broken Protocol, the Zetharian collective convened an emergency council. Vexthor found himself explaining the situation to superiors who had never known defeat. The humans have destroyed 60% of our supply infrastructure, Vexthor reported, trying to keep his voice steady. They employ tactics that violate every principle of civilized warfare. Suicide attacks, hidden explosives, targeting of non-military infrastructure. Why have you not crushed this resistance? Demanded one of the council members. Because they do not stand and fight. They strike and disappear. They hide among the civilian population. Our protocols prohibit us from— Your protocols are failing, another council member interrupted. Perhaps it is time to abandon some of these protocols. Vexthor felt his confidence crack. You mean total warfare? Unrestricted retaliation? We mean whatever is necessary to pacify Earth. The collective cannot afford to appear weak. If one conquered species successfully resists, others will follow. But the council underestimated how far the news had already spread. The humans were broadcasting their victories across every frequency they could access. Admiral Chen ensured that each successful attack was documented and transmitted throughout known space. On distant worlds, other subjugated species watched and wondered. If the humans could fight back, why couldn't they? Back on Earth, Kai's resistance had evolved from guerrilla fighters to a coordinated military force. They had weapons now, stolen from Zitharian armories or built in hidden workshops. Dr. Webb had smuggled down technical information that allowed human engineers to build handheld versions of the shield disruptors. Test it, Kai ordered, watching as one of his people aimed the device at a captured piece of Zitharian armor. The fighter activated the disruptor. The armor, which had withstood bullets and explosives, simply crumbled into pieces. Kai smiled. Mass-produce these. Every fighter gets one. The Zitharians tried to adapt their shields, changing frequencies and patterns. But every adaptation was analyzed by Dr. Webb's team and countered within days. It became a race between Zitharian innovation and human ingenuity. And the humans were winning because they had nothing to lose and everything to fight for. High Executor Vexithor stood in his command center, watching his carefully organized occupation crumble. Supply problems meant his forces were running low on fuel and ammunition. Communication problems meant orders took hours to reach their destinations. Troop morale was failing as soldiers realized they were not fighting primitives, but a determined enemy that refused to quit. High Executor, we have reports of human fleet activity near Neptune, an officer reported. What are they doing there? We do not know. Our sensors cannot penetrate the interference. Vexthor's eyes narrowed. Neptune was far from Earth, far from any strategic target. What were the humans planning? He was about to find out. The asteroid struck the Zitharian orbital command platform at 17 kilometers per second. High Executor Vexthor had exactly 3 seconds of warning before impact. His sensors detected the massive object as it came screaming out of Neptune's orbit, but 3 seconds was not enough time to mount any defense. The asteroid, larger than most human ships, had been wrapped in reflective materials that scattered sensor beams and painted with radar-absorbing coatings. The command platform exploded in a flash visible from Earth's surface. 12,000 Zitharians died instantly, along with the primary command structure for Earth's occupation. Admiral Sarah Chen watched the impact from her ship, her face grim. She took no pleasure in the deaths, but this was war, and the Zitharians had started it. Target destroyed, Lieutenant Park reported unnecessarily. The explosion spoke for itself. Broadcast a message on all frequencies, Sarah ordered. Tell them that was for Mars. Tell them we're just getting started. The destruction of the orbital platform changed everything. The Zitharian forces on Earth suddenly found themselves without clear leadership or coordination. Local commanders made their own decisions, often contradicting each other. The carefully organized occupation descended into chaos. Kai Okonkwo seized the opportunity. His resistance cell, now numbering over 1,000 fighters, launched an assault on the Zitharian garrison in Lagos. They had been planning this attack for weeks, studying patrol patterns and defensive positions. Remember, Kai told his people before the attack, we're not trying to kill them all. We're trying to make them want to leave. Hit hard, fall back, make them chase us into prepared positions. The attack began at dawn. Resistance fighters struck from a dozen different directions, using the shield disruptors to nullify the Zitharians' primary defensive advantage. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that could hurt them, and it was terrifying. A Zitharian soldier fired his plasma weapon at a human fighter, but the human had already moved, taking cover behind rubble. Return fire came from 3 different angles, coordinated and deadly. The soldier's armor held against the first two shots, but the third found the weak point at the neck joint. "They know where to shoot," a Zitharian commander broadcast to his troops. "They have learned our vulnerabilities. Fall back to secondary positions." But falling back meant leaving equipment behind. Kai's people recovered weapons, armor, communication devices. Everything they captured was sent to Dr. Webb's teams for analysis and reproduction. On Europa, Webb was working on something far more dangerous than shield disruptors. He had spent months studying the Zitharian power cores, trying to understand how they generated such massive amounts of energy in such small packages. "It's elegant," Webb muttered to Dr. Nakamura as they studied the latest scans. "They use controlled spatial compression to extract energy from quantum fluctuations." "It's brilliant. Can we weaponize it?" Nakamura asked. Webb was silent for a long moment. "Yes. If we destabilize the containment field, the power core would essentially create a miniature black hole that would last for about 3 seconds before evaporating. In those 3 seconds, it would consume everything within a half-kilometer radius. That's a bomb. That's a weapon that would make thermonuclear devices look like firecrackers," Webb corrected. "And Sarah, I'm not sure we should build it." Admiral Chen arrived at Europa 2 days later to see the weapon for herself. Webb showed her the calculations, the simulations, the terrifying destructive potential. "If we use this, we're no better than them," Webb argued. "This weapon doesn't distinguish between military and civilian targets. It just destroys everything." Sarah studied the data in silence. She thought about Mars, about the 3,000 people who died in seconds. She thought about the executions she had witnessed from orbit, the civilians hung from lampposts as examples. "Build a prototype," she finally said. "But we won't use it unless we have no other choice. Consider it insurance." "Sarah, I said we won't use it unless necessary. But I want the Zitharians to know we have it. I want them to understand that if they push us to the brink, we have the capacity to push back so hard they'll never recover." Webb nodded reluctantly and returned to his work. Sarah left Europa feeling sick to her stomach. War had turned her into someone who could casually order the creation of weapons of mass destruction. She wondered if she would recognize herself when this was over. The battle for Earth's orbit intensified. The Zitharians had brought in reinforcements from their nearest worlds, tripling the number of ships in the system. Admiral Chen's fleet was still vastly outnumbered, but they fought with tactics the aliens could not predict. Near Neptune, human ships used the planet's moons as cover, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. They laid mines in orbits the Zitharians had to use, turning simple transit routes into deadly obstacle courses. They even modified some asteroids to look like ships, drawing fire and wasting alien ammunition. "They're learning to anticipate some of our tactics," Commander Jackson reported, after a battle near Uranus. "We lost 2 ships today because they predicted our attack pattern. Then we changed the pattern," Sarah replied. "We're humans. Adaptation is what we do." On Earth, the resistance was becoming more organized and bold. In New York, fighters destroyed a Zitharian processing center that had been converting human factories to produce alien goods. In Tokyo, they seized control of a spaceport for 6 hours before withdrawing, just long enough to evacuate 2,000 prisoners. High Executor Vexithor was drowning in defeat reports. Each day brought news of more losses, more setbacks, more embarrassments. The Zitharian collective was demanding answers he did not have. "How are these primitives doing this?" he demanded of his advisors. "They should have been broken months ago." "They are not like other species," one advisor said carefully. "They do not accept defeat. They simply adapt and continue fighting. Then we will break them completely," Vexthor decided. "Bring the planetary bombardment ships into position. If they will not surrender, we will reduce their cities to ash." But the order never reached the bombardment ships. Kai Okonkwo's resistance had infiltrated the Zitharian communication network weeks earlier. They intercepted the order and immediately transmitted it to Admiral Chen. "They're planning to bombard population centers," Sarah said, staring at the intercepted message. "We can't allow that." "We don't have the forces to stop them," Jackson replied. "Their bombardment ships are heavily armored and protected by escort fleets." Sarah looked at Dr. Webb on the communication screen. "How is the weapon coming?" Webb's face went pale. "Sarah, no. That's not what it's for. How long until it's ready?" 48 hours. "But Sarah, if you use this, if you show the galaxy that humans have this kind of destructive power, every species out there will see us as a threat." Better they fear us than think they can walk over us, Sarah said coldly. Finish it. She turned to her tactical officer. Plot an intercept course for the bombardment ships. We're going to give them a demonstration they'll never forget. The next 2 days were spent in preparation. The human fleet, 11 ships against 40 Zetharian vessels, moved into position between Earth and the approaching bombardment force. It was suicide and everyone knew it. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Earth, Park said. It's Kai Okonkwo. He says the Resistance is ready to launch simultaneous attacks on all Zetharian ground positions. They're waiting for your signal. Sarah nodded. Tell him to wait. If this goes wrong, they'll need to survive without us. Dr. Webb's voice came over the channel. The weapon is ready. Sarah, please think about what you're doing. I am thinking about it. I'm thinking about Earth. Send me the activation codes. The Battle of Earth orbit began at midnight. Admiral Chen's fleet emerged from behind the moon, weapons blazing. The Zetharians were caught off guard by the audacity of the attack. 11 ships charging 40? It was insanity. The Victory took hits almost immediately. Shields flared and died, hull plating vaporized, entire sections decompressed. But Sarah kept the ship on course, heading straight for the bombardment vessels. We're not going to make it, Jackson shouted over the alarms. We don't have to, Sarah replied. She activated the communication channel to all Zetharian ships. High Executor Vexthor, this is Admiral Chen. We have developed a weapon based on your own technology, one that can destroy entire fleets. Stand down your bombardment ships or I will demonstrate it. Vexthor's response was immediate. You are bluffing. Humanity does not have such technology. Dr. Webb, activate the weapon. Target the empty moon Phobos. Let's show them what humans can build when you threaten our home. Far from the battle, on a modified missile platform, Dr. Webb entered the activation codes with shaking hands. The weapon launched, a simple-looking device no larger than a person. It traveled toward Mars's small moon Phobos at maximum speed. When it detonated, Phobos ceased to exist. The moon simply vanished, consumed by the brief existence of a miniature black hole. When the sensors cleared, there was nothing left but scattered dust particles. The Zetharian fleet stopped firing. For several long seconds, no one moved, no one spoke. They had just witnessed a weapon that unmade matter itself. That was a small one, Sarah lied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The next one we use will be 10 times more powerful. The Zetharian collective convened an emergency session unlike any in their 1,000-year history. Representatives from dozens of member species gathered in the Grand Chamber, all watching the footage of Phobos' destruction on repeat. The humans have planet-killer technology, one representative stated, his voice hollow with disbelief. Impossible, another argued. They were pre-contact. They had barely achieved faster-than-light travel. How could they develop such weapons in less than a year? They reverse-engineered our technology, Vexthor reported from Earth orbit, his 6 eyes downcast in shame. They studied our weapons, our shields, our power systems. They learned from everything we used against them. Then you gave primitives the keys to galactic warfare, an elder council member said coldly. You have committed the greatest tactical error in our history. What do? Another asked. We cannot allow this defeat to become public. Other subjugated species will see this as permission to rebel. The humans have already broadcast their victories across known space, Vexthor admitted. We intercepted transmissions to at least 40 different worlds. The galaxy already knows. The chamber fell silent. The Zetharian collective had built its empire on the assumption that resistance was futile. Now, humanity had proven that assumption wrong, and they had done it in the most public way possible. High Executor Vexthor stood in his command center, watching Earth below. The planet looked peaceful from orbit, beautiful even, with its blue oceans and white clouds. He thought about the humans down there, still fighting, still refusing to give up even after months of occupation. Open a channel to Admiral Chen, Vexthor ordered. Sarah Chen's face appeared on the screen, and Vexthor saw something in her eyes that made him uncomfortable. It was not hatred or triumph. It was exhaustion mixed with determination. This human would never stop fighting, he realized. Not ever, High Executor, Sarah said, her voice neutral. Admiral Chen, The collective has authorized me to negotiate terms of withdrawal. Sarah felt her heart skip a beat, but she kept her expression calm. Withdrawal? Not surrender? We do not surrender, Vexthor said stiffly. We acknowledge that the occupation of Earth has become impractical. We are willing to discuss terms for peaceful separation. Let me be clear about something, Sarah replied. You invaded our home. You killed millions of our people. You enslaved those who survived. And now you want to discuss terms as if this was a business disagreement? What would you have us do? Continue fighting until both our species are destroyed? Sarah leaned forward. No. I want you to leave Earth. I want you to acknowledge human sovereignty over our entire solar system. I want reparations for the damage you've caused. And I want a formal treaty guaranteeing that no member of the Zitharian collective will ever threaten humanity again. Those terms are excessive. Those terms are generous, Sarah interrupted. Because the alternative is that I use the weapon again, not on an empty moon, on one of your ships, and then another, and another, until you leave anyway, but with much heavier losses. Vexthor studied the human admiral. She was not bluffing. I will convey your demands to the collective. On Earth, Kaio Conquo received word of the negotiations through the resistance network. He stood on the same rooftop where he had watched the invasion begin, but now he looked at a city starting to breathe again. Zitharian patrols had stopped. The executions had stopped. The aliens were preparing to leave. Is it really over? Amara asked beside him. Not yet, Kai replied, but it will be. The Galactic Council had observed the Earth situation with growing alarm. They were an organization dedicated to maintaining order among the spacefaring species, and humanity's violent resistance threatened that order. A delegation arrived in Earth's solar system 2 weeks after the Phobos incident. They came in ships, bristling with weapons, making it clear this was not a purely diplomatic visit. Admiral Chen met them in neutral space near Saturn, her fleet arranged in defensive formation around the meeting location. She boarded the council ship with Lieutenant Park and 2 security officers, leaving strict orders with Commander Jackson. If anything happens to me, use the weapon on this ship. Make it clear that killing human representatives has consequences. The council chamber was vast, designed to accommodate species of wildly different sizes and environmental needs. Sarah walked to the center, feeling the weight of dozens of alien eyes upon her. Humanity has caused great disruption, the council speaker began. It was a being that looked like living crystal, refracting light in rainbow patterns. The Zitharian collective came to integrate your species into the galactic community through established protocols. You responded with excessive violence. Sarah felt anger surge through her. Established protocols? They invaded our planet. They enslaved our people. We defended ourselves. Defense is acceptable, but you developed weapons of mass destruction. You attacked supply lines and civilian infrastructure. You violated every principle of civilized warfare. Then maybe your civilization needs new principles, Sarah shot back. You call it integration. We call it invasion. You expect species to simply accept subjugation, because that is how things have always been done. Well, humanity doesn't accept that. Your refusal to accept reality endangers the entire galactic order, another council member stated. If other species follow your example, chaos will spread across known space. Good, Sarah said, and the chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. If your order is built on the enslavement of weaker species, then it deserves to fall. Humanity will not be part of a system that treats sentient beings as resources to be exploited. You speak of principles, but you destroyed an entire moon, the speaker replied. You demonstrated a willingness to use weapons that terrify even us. Why should we believe you will not turn those weapons on us? Sarah was silent for a moment, considering her words carefully. Because we didn't want to build that weapon. Our scientist, Dr. Webb, argued against it. I ordered its creation anyway because you gave us no choice. You came to our system with overwhelming force, and we responded with the only force we could muster. But understand this. We built it for defense, not conquest. We will use it to protect our home, not to threaten others. Pretty words, the speaker said. But weapons do not care about intentions. Then judge us by our actions, Sarah replied. We had the opportunity to destroy the Zetharian fleet completely. We didn't. We gave them a chance to leave peacefully. That should tell you something about who we are. The council deliberated for 3 days. During that time, Sarah remained on the council ship, essentially a prisoner. Though no one called it that, she spent the time thinking about what came next. If the council decided humanity was too dangerous, they might try to quarantine Earth, or worse. Finally, the speaker summoned her back to the chamber. The council has reached a decision. Humanity will be granted provisional membership in the galactic community. With full sovereignty over your solar system, the Zetharian Collective will withdraw completely and pay reparations as you demanded. However, there are conditions. Name them, Sarah said. You will destroy all but one of your planet-killer weapons. The remaining one will be held in trust, to be used only for defense of your home system. You will submit to regular inspections to ensure compliance, and you will accept a council observer station in your system to monitor your technological development. Sarah considered the terms. They were not ideal, but they were better than continued war. I need to consult with my government. Consultation is acceptable, but Admiral Chen, understand that this offer will not be made twice. The council is divided on whether humanity should be destroyed or welcomed. Do not give the war faction a reason to act. Sarah returned to Earth for the first time in a year. She took a shuttle down to Geneva, where the human governments had reconvened. The city was scarred from the occupation, but people were rebuilding. She saw humans working alongside other humans, no longer divided by the old nations and boundaries. The invasion had united humanity in a way nothing else could have. Secretary General Santos met her at the landing pad. The elderly woman looked even older now, worn down by the weight of decisions no leader should have to make. Admiral Chen, welcome home. Thank you, Madam Secretary General. We need to discuss the council's offer. They walked through the city, followed by security but otherwise unbothered. People recognized Sarah, but they did not mob her. They simply nodded respectfully or offered quiet thanks. She had become a symbol of human resistance, and it was a burden she had not asked for but would carry anyway. The council wants to control us, Sarah said as they walked. They want to limit our weapons, monitor our development, keep us contained. But they're acknowledging our sovereignty, Santos replied. That's more than any pre-contact species has ever received. Because we scared them. We showed them that humans don't follow their rules. And do you think that's a good thing? Sarah was silent for a long time. I don't know. I think we proved that underestimating desperate people is a mistake, but I also think we came very close to becoming monsters. If we had used that weapon on the Zetharian fleet, killed thousands of beings who were just following orders, I don't know if I could live with that. The human governments debated for a week. In the end, they accepted the council's terms.